Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. Yes, I'm back. Well, first on the docket, the ex-Sheriff Stines is indicted for killing the judge. Bryan Kohberger can rest at ease. He now knows that he can be put to death if he loses. Laken Riley's homicide case is over. Probably one of the shortest murder trials I've seen in a long time. Jussie Smollett wins. Susan Smith loses. The Georgia high school shooter dad pleads not guilty. We have this day in legal history and our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment below and hit that little bell for notifications so you know when we go live or put up new content. And yes, you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. All right, did you miss me? Well, speaking of short trials, just like the Laken Riley homicide trial, I was doing a federal trial. And the count that we knew, the big one that we had to worry about, we won. We went down on 2 other counts. So it was a good day. Client is happy. Saved him another 10 years on top of whatever he will already get. So it was a good couple of days in court. Apologize for not getting a show up, but when I'm in trial, well, I got to focus on trial. I just got to do it. So my apologies. And we have a Thanksgiving next week, and then the week after that, I've got a 2-day trial on an unlawful sexual contact at the end of the week. So it just never ends, ladies and gentlemen. And then we roll into another one right after that, I do believe, for attempting to influence a public official. So it just never ends. But we'll keep you updated. The show must go on. All right, let's try to pay a couple of bills. Listen, you need to go to crimetalksearch.com. Sign up for that background subscription service. Okay, when you do, you're going to be able to do a background search on anyone in the United States. And you're going to get information on whether they're married, whether they're divorced, whether they own property, whether they have judgments, liens. What is their criminal history like? It's everything you want to know about somebody coming into your life. If you're dating somebody, a Google search just isn't enough today. You need a professional background search. It's like hiring your own private investigator. Go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up today, and hey, you can cancel at any time. So if you want to do one search a day or one search and you're done, that's your prerogative. You can do what you want, but you're going to be happy that you got it, and you're going to have that peace of mind that you did the search. All right, let's go ahead and open the record for November 21st, 2024. First on the docket, that's right, the ex-sheriff Mickey Stines has been indicted for murder. The indictment was announced jointly by state and local prosecutors charging old Mickey Stines with shooting and killing Letcher County District Judge Kevin Mullins. Stines is scheduled to appear for an arraignment on Monday, November 25th, and that's where he will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. Now, at the probable cause hearing back in October, we saw the video that appeared to show the sheriff, that's right, Sheriff Stines, walking into the judge's chambers with a weapon and firing multiple times at the judge, who frantically tried to get under his desk, but it didn't quite work out well for the judge because he's now dead. Well, as I noted, Stines was the sheriff at the time of the shooting. He resigned on October 1st, just right before he made his appearance in court to plead not guilty to the murder charges. Now, investigators have still not publicly given any motive for the murder. Lots of speculation, and we don't like to speculate, but it really makes you wonder. There's the theory that the judge was maybe doing something inappropriately, or was the sheriff doing something inappropriately, and the judge was trying to help the family of the sheriff. We don't know. We'll put that out there, but understand, take it with a grain of salt because we have no confirmation of it yet. Now, I've had people contact me and say, hey, Scott, I live here. The judge, good guy. Stines, bad guy. Allegedly. We're going to wait and see. But I'm interested. I don't know about you. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting case. Should be a short case. We just want to know why we did it. Is it going to be murder or some sort of lesser criminal negligence, reckless manslaughter, heat of passion type of factor that comes in that says, yes, I'm guilty, but I had a good reason for it? We're going to have to wait and see. And the prosecutors have not announced whether they will seek the death penalty because guess what? Killing a judge, that's an aggravating factor. It really, really is. Next on the docket, Bryan Kohberger. He can rest at ease. Now it's official. He can be put to death if he is convicted of all the crimes that he has been allegedly accused of committing. That's right. The judge there in Idaho has ruled that Bryan Kohberger can face the death penalty if convicted of the 2022 killings of the 4 college students. Now, as you probably know, but if you haven't been following this, Bryan Kohberger is accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students: Ethan Chapin, Zaina Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves. And obviously that murder took place there in Moscow, Idaho, at their house that was off campus, but it was a residence that they rented, going back to November of 2022. Can you believe that? It's already been 2 years on this, ladies and gentlemen. So Kohberger is obviously being held without bail, and he has 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary, which are pending. Well, Judge Stephen Hippler agreed with the state that the attempts to take the death penalty off the table for Bryan Kohberger, well, they fell flat. The court put in their order, the court concludes relief in defendant's favor is not warranted on any of the motions. That means big denied. The judge pointed out that the capital punishment is constitutional and legal in the state of Idaho. So if you're convicted of capital murder, you can face the capital punishment. Now, the attorneys for Bryan Kohberger have argued that international, federal, and state law all make it inappropriate for the case to go forward as a murder or as a death penalty case. And during the pretrial motions hearing, Bryan Kohberger's defense team made the broad range of arguments against the death penalty, saying it is not fit in today's standards and decencies of today's societies, that it is cruel to make condemned inmates sit for decades on death row, awaiting execution, and that it violates international treaties prohibiting the torture of prisoners. Some would say that you're right. They shouldn't sit around for decades on death row, that they should have a very speedy appellate process, have that all heard rather expeditiously so that they don't have to wait around a very long time to be put to death if they are actually convicted and given their due process rights. And while international law, although it is recognized as the law, it is still below that of the United States Constitution, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know that? Treaties, the courts have to follow treaties. It's true, but the facts don't apply here. Anyway, Judge Hippler questioned many of those claims, saying that the international treaties they referenced was focused on ensuring that prisoners are given due process so they are not convicted and executed without a fair trial. So as long as they get the fair trial, then they can be executed. Well, prosecutors also noted that the Idaho Supreme Court has already considered all of these arguments in other capital cases, and the motions have all fallen flat there as well. Still, by bringing up the issues during the motions hearing, Bryan Kohberger's defense team has taken the step to preserving these arguments for any potential appellate record, which means if he is convicted, we'll give him the presumption of innocence. If he's convicted, there'll be appellate issues going to the Idaho Supreme Court. Then it'll go to the United States Supreme Court. Then they kind of work in the post-conviction relief, ineffective assistance of counsel in that initial pleading, but then that'll go up and down, and then we'll have all kinds of appellate issues for years. Post-conviction relief saying, well, not only were the trial attorneys ineffective, guess what? So were my appellate attorneys. They suck too. It'll go on for years and decades, and that's why it takes so long. Now, the Christy and Steve Gonsalves, the parents of Kaylee Gonsalves, they've attended the hearing on November 7th, and they said the case is one that cries for the death penalty. Obviously, there are 4 victims, all in one house. If this doesn't say death penalty, Mr. Gonsalves said, what does? Now, the mother, Christy Gonsalves, said that she's talked to the coroner and knows what has happened to her daughter. If he did anything like he did to our daughter, to the others, then he deserves to die. Her words, not mine. Anyway, Bryan Kohberger's defense team had successfully argued that Mr. Kohberger's trial needed to be held outside of Moscow, Idaho, where the murders took place due to the strong emotional and extensive media coverage. And that's when Judge Hippler became the presiding judge, when Judge granted a motion for change of venue. Now he is retiring. Mr. Kohberger's trial is scheduled to begin on July 30th, 2025. I'm going to put that on my calendar because I'm going to be there, assuming it goes. I think this judge, he doesn't play. I think we're going to have a trial in July. Now, prosecutors have claimed that Mr. Kohberger's DNA was found on the K-bar knife sheath found at the off-campus home, though no murder weapon has ever been found. Police have also claimed that the cell phone data and surveillance put Mr. Kohberger and his car near the crime scene. And for those who don't know, obviously Mr. Kohberger was a PhD criminology student and a teaching assistant at Washington State University, Pullman, about a 15-minute drive from Moscow, Idaho. Now, Mr. Kohberger has maintained his innocence throughout this process and will, I'm assuming, until, well, this matter is ultimately resolved one way or the other. Next on the docket. So the Laken Riley murder case was one of the fastest murder trials that we covered. It started last Friday and ended yesterday, where the judge found Jose Ibarra guilty of murdering Laken Riley, a young nursing student who was found dead on the University of Georgia's campus back in February. Now, when they went to immediate sentencing, which is, what are you going to set it over for, right? Let's just go straight to it. That's the way it's always been done. That's the way it should be. Well, the judge gave him life in prison, putting an end, obviously, to the murder case. It became, obviously, a political hotbed on all sides, discussing the immigration issue. Now, like I said, Judge Patrick Haggard found Ibarra guilty of malice murder, felony murder, kidnapping with bodily injury, aggravated assault with intent to rape, aggravated battery, obstructing a person making an emergency call, tampering with evidence, and being a peeping Tom. Now, prosecutors said that Mr. Ibarra murdered Riley while she was out for a run after she refused to be a rape victim. Ibarra waived his right to a jury trial on November 12th, and the judge was the sole decider of fact. That's probably why it went so quickly. Anyway, it was highlighted as this sick, twisted, and evil coward showed no regard for Laken or human life, and we are asking that the same be done to him. That was according to Laken Riley's mother, Allison Phillips. Now, Laken Riley was found dead near a lake at the University of Georgia on February 22nd of this year with visible injuries and blunt force trauma wounds after her friend reported that she had never returned from a run. And Riley's death was ruled a homicide, and Ibarra was named as a suspect the following day. Now, Mr. Ibarra had recently been sent from New York at his request, where he had also had some troubles and ultimately wound up there in Athens, Georgia. Like I said, he had been arrested in 2023 in New York on a charge of acting in a manner to injure a child less than 17. Basically had a child on a scooter without a helmet. Anyway, he apparently, if you saw the trial, his friend, Mr. Ibarra's friend, testified that basically they were staying at a hotel and they asked for a flight to Georgia, and they got one. And there you go. Anyway, the special prosecutor, Sheila Ross, told the court that Riley fought for her life while struggling with Ibarra, causing him to leave forensic evidence at the scene. There was, in fact, his DNA underneath several of her fingernails. She fought, as the prosecutor said, to not be a rape victim until Ibarra smashed her head in, hence the blunt force trauma. Now, just to show you how much faster things go when you do not have a jury, there were 28 witnesses called for the prosecution in this particular case. So there you go. Justice was swift there in that particular case, and I think appropriate. Murder's wrong. We'll just leave it at that. And to go out there and literally, as the prosecutors described, to go hunt Miss Laken Riley, that's just pure evil. Pure evil, ladies and gentlemen. Next, Jussie Smollett. Remember him? Well, he's had his conviction for lying to the police with that little anti-Trump hoax overturned in a court ruling from the Illinois Supreme Court. The court found that the former actor had his rights violated by a special prosecutor's decision to retry him after initial charge against him were dropped. The agreement was that he would not be charged with any future crimes. Anyway, Mr. Smollett was convicted back in December of 2021 for lying to police about the alleged episode in Chicago just 2 years before that, where he claimed that two men beat him up, yelled homophobic slurs, and placed a noose around his neck while wearing a MAGA hat, which turned out to be a complete lie. Anyway, he was sentenced to 150 days in jail, 30 months probation, after which was proven that he'd made the whole thing up, and that he was also slapped with a hefty fine of $130,000, which was roughly about the expenses that the police spent investigating his false report to the police. Anyway, Mr. Smollett, through his attorneys, appealed the ruling, and he's not yet served a day of that sentence behind bars after his conviction was affirmed by a lower court back in 2023. That's when the Illinois Supreme Court agreed to hear the appeal. Now, the arrest obviously was kind of a big deal, I guess, because it turned out to be fake, and I don't know, it's just wrong in so many ways. When Mr. Smollett first came forward with the story, he was met with some support, and then the Chicago PD vowed to swiftly find his attackers. Well, Smollett even showed police the noose that he claimed that he was almost lynched with. Although Smollett claimed he was attacked by two white Trump supporters, detectives reviewed surveillance footage and zeroed in on a couple of brothers as the possible suspects. When presented with the surveillance pictures of the brothers near the scene, Smollett said they were absolutely the men who attacked him, not realizing they had already been arrested. Now, one of his attorneys claimed that Smollett may have misidentified the brothers, who he had just been on the phone with moments before, because they could have been in a disguise in white makeup. She went on to point out to a 2016 YouTube video of one of the brothers where he is wearing a white makeup to perform a Joker's monologue for Halloween as proof for her theory. By that time, stories had leaked that detectives believed Smollett had concocted the story, and seemingly in an attempt to boost his own public profile. That didn't work so well. Smollett actually went on Good Morning America and tearfully insisted that he was the victim. But by February of 2019, a month after the incident, he was arrested and charged with filing false reports. Despite the grand jury indictment for him being lying to the police, the charges against Smollett were dropped a month later in March, and obviously people were upset. Even then, President Trump led the backlash as he described the charges as an embarrassment for being dropped, and Jussie Smollett took advantage of the pain and anger of racism to promote his career, is what the police chief said. Anyway, the mayor at the time, Rahm Emanuel, announced that it would be a whitewash of justice that proved Smollett was treated gently by the system because he is a celebrity. Now, after he was fined the $140,000 for wasting police resources, a special prosecutor was named to investigate why the charges against Smollett were dropped. It was this decision that has now led to Smollett's ultimate conviction to be overturned this week, as was found his rights were in fact violated because Smollett had agreed with the prosecution that he would not be recharged at the time that the case was dropped. Now, in February of 2020, Smollett was indicted again on felony for lying to the police and following a contentious trial where he maintained his innocence, but was ultimately convicted. When the Illinois Supreme Court handed down the ruling to overturn that conviction today, Chief Justice Thies and Justice Cunningham recused themselves from the decision, and the court opinions pointed to the agreement Smollett had with the Illinois prosecution after the charges were dropped. The court stated in their opinion, "We are aware that this case has generated significant public interest and that many people were dissatisfied with the resolution of the original case and believed it to be unjust. Nevertheless, that would be more unjust than the resolution of any one criminal case would be a holding from this court that the state was not bound to honor agreements upon which people have detrimentally relied." Now, I think the one point that we really haven't mentioned here is the fact that he got the sweetheart deal because there was talk that high-level political people that were friends with Mr. Smollett were in contact with the DA, and there were phone records to prove that. And then he got the sweetheart deal. Now, I get it. The defendant should get the benefit of the deal made by the prosecution. What happened here was that they found that the deal never should have been made because it was basically an illegal deal. But I understand the court's rationale. Basically, this is a political question. If you don't like your sleazy prosecutor, DA making smoking good deals to things that offend the public, the remedy really is to go kick out that elected representative and hire people that aren't going to be persuaded by situations where they give benefits to people that have friends and publicly known people, famous actors, that kind of thing. So I get it. I do. I don't think it helped Mr. Smollett's career. It's probably forever gone. I don't know what he's been in ever since. Probably won't be back in anything in the future either as well. I don't know. We wish him well. He got what he wanted. That's the way the court systems works. Sometimes you don't always get the results that you're looking for. Next, Susan Smith is denied. Convicted child killer Susan Smith was very tearful at her parole hearing, and a lot of people said it was all BS and that she was just acting. Yes, Miss Smith was finally up for parole after serving 30 years of her life sentence. After 30 years, she's eligible for parole. She's denied now, and she will be eligible every 2 years thereafter. And I doubt that Miss Smith will ever get out of custody. And frankly, I'm okay with that. And why am I okay with that? Well, because she was running around, didn't want to have kids, new boyfriend didn't want to have kids. She not only killed her 3-year-old and 14-month-old children back in 1994, she then claimed that she was hijacked out of her car, carjacked by a black man. She's just a horrible human being, ladies and gentlemen. First she kills her kids, then she tries to blame something on somebody living in South Carolina at the time. I'm not saying all people in South Carolina. I love South Carolina. I have a home in South Carolina. I love South Carolina. But she was trying to make the inference that a black man, carjacked my car and my kids were in it. And oh my God, what has happened? She was out there pleading for her kids' lives, knowing full well to the public that they were dead because she is the one that killed them. Now, the parole board, like I said, no. They also considered she apparently had some unfavorable discipline records as to also why they turned down her request. The ex-husband was also there and wanted to make sure that she never gets out. And I'm okay with that. This is just one of those cases. There's just some things that are so reprehensible. I understand people can change. I understand people make poor decisions. But when you're killing your kids, I mean, seriously, a 3-year-old and a 14-year-old 3 years old and a 14-month-old, your job as a mother is to protect your children. We've said this before. We'll say it again. Throughout nature, you will find that parents have one thing that they should do, and it's throughout nature, and that is protect their children. Miss Smith didn't do it. Next on the docket, speaking of maybe not some great parenting skills, the father of the Appalachia High School shooter, Colt Gray, pled not guilty today to 29 counts, including 2 counts of murder, second-degree murder, and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Now, Colin Gray did not appear in court today as they entered a not guilty plea for him and waived his formal rights to appear in court. Now, Mr. Gray's son, Colt Gray, is accused of killing 4 and wounding 9 others during a mass shooting at a Georgia high school back on September 4th of this year. He, too, has pled not guilty. Now, a grand jury down there in Georgia indicted Colt Gray on a total of 55 counts as an adult, including murder in the deaths of 4 people and 25 counts of aggravated assault there at the high school. Now, both he and his father also faced multiple counts of cruelty to children. Now, Colin Gray was arrested and charged with allegedly purchasing the firearm used in the shooting and giving it to Colt for Christmas. The shooting killed teachers Richard Aspinwall, Christina Ermey, and students Mason Shermanhorn and Christian Angulo, who were both just 14 years old. Another teacher and 8 other students were wounded, 7 of them hit by gunfire. Obviously, shooting people, bad, absolutely. It's one of those unique legal theories. We've talked about it before. We can talk about it again in the future. My theory is that this kid was given a rifle. He went hunting. Should the dad maybe have locked it up? Okay, sure, fine. But to say that he was somehow complicit in that killing, I got a real problem with that. Like I said, I think then if this is the new law of the land, anytime a juvenile gets arrested, we need to charge the parents because obviously they must have known that the child was going to go commit some illegal acts. It's their fault. Do you really want that? It's a slippery slope, ladies and gentlemen. We usually don't prosecute people for crimes unless we know that they knowingly participated in them. So if the facts were to come out that the dad told the son, today's the big day, son, let's go shoot up the school, then I would say, yes, the dad is guilty just like he pulled the trigger himself. But if he says, hey, have a great day at school, son, see you tomorrow, going on that hunting trip this weekend, that's not complicity, ladies and gentlemen. He is not aiding, encouraging, abetting in the commission of the crime. I know a lot of people don't like that, but just wait till it comes to a neighborhood near you and you're the one being charged. It's just something to think about. Next on the docket, this day in legal history, on November 21st, 1787, the Constitutional Convention adjourned, marking the completion of a draft of the Constitution that would become the foundation of U.S. law. Obviously, a significant milestone establishing the federal legal system, I would agree. On November 21st, 1931, federal agents intensified their investigation into Al Capone's finances. He was eventually convicted of tax evasion and demonstrated the government's ability to prosecute organized crime through unconventional legal means. But wait, there's more. On November 21st, 1932, the United States Supreme Court ruled in Powell v. Alabama that defendants in capital cases have a constitutional right to effective legal counsel. Obviously, a strengthening of the Sixth Amendment, only to be further expanded down the way with Gideon v. Wainwright back in the early 60s, 1961, I believe, that says that basically everyone accused of a crime where the possibility of jail/prison is an option, you're entitled to the attorney of your choice. And if you can't afford one, they're going to appoint one for you. Come a long way. 1932. Yeah, if you're charged with murder, yeah, you should probably get some help from an attorney. Just saying, come on. And then on November 21st, 1968, the Gun Control Act was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson. This act regulates firearm sales and ownerships and remains the cornerstone of U.S. gun legislation, which means that they can track you down. Let's say, for example, your client was charged with a gun charge. Maybe he's a prohibited person. They have to show that the gun traveled in interstate commerce. So they have to bring in an ATF agent to say, I am an ATF trained agent, and I have looked and I have found that this firearm manufactured in Connecticut, assembled in Alabama, and brought to the great state of Colorado, and it was not manufactured here, so therefore there's interstate commerce, which gives the federal government jurisdiction to prosecute Mr. Reich's client. That's what they do. I don't know. I guess that whole DOJ, the government efficiency, they could probably do the interstate nexus department, reduce that to 3 people for the United States instead of the entire ATF. Just saying. And finally today, our dumb criminal of the day. A high repetitious learner, ladies and gentlemen. So 9 years ago, when he was a 48-year-old man, a Palm Coast resident, walked into the Flagler Beach Public store just before the bridge, apparently down there, and went up to the service desk, lifted his shirt to expose the butt of a gun, gave the clerk a bag, and told the clerk, put all the money in the bag. Well, that guy got $2,600 and ran out of the store, and he used some of the money to pay some overdue bills and cable bills and tried to stave off foreclosure. Well, it didn't quite work out so well. The property was eventually foreclosed upon. Well, this gentleman ultimately received a probationary sentence for grand theft. This gentleman was on probation for grand theft at the time that he committed this robbery. And then he was ultimately found guilty of the Publix robbery, convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison, followed by an additional 5 years of probation. Then he was released from the state prison in early 2020, and his probation was set to expire in just a few weeks. And then this Tuesday, now 57, that same Flagler Beach resident walked into the same Publix a little after noon, roughly the same time when he committed his robbery back in 2015. This time he had a Beatles t-shirt on, a light-colored shorts, and a camouflage hat, went up to the same service desk, gave the clerk a Publix bag and said, quickly and quietly put money into the bag. But this time the clerk, a young 20-year-old woman, told the man that she needed a manager's permission to access the cash. He said, you're lying. She turned the computer screen his way to prove that she couldn't log in. What he hadn't seen was that the clerk's quick and smart move moments earlier that she managed to log herself out. Just another customer walked up and stood behind this man, and he grabbed the bag and ran out. As authorities were investigating, they learned that a similar style robbery attempt at another Publix just down the street and surveillance footage revealed that the person wore similar clothing, but the dark beetle shirt may have been worn inside out. Anyway, the Flagler Beach police sent surveillance footage to the Flagler County Sheriff's real-time center where facial recognition software matched up the images. And guess what? It was the same guy. The detective then went to the address where this guy was living. He wasn't there. His roommate was there and described his roommate as being the guy that was there and said, yeah, the clothes were there. And he said that his roommate said for this guy that he had to go and get some money to pay the utility bills. Well, guess what? This guy was subsequently arrested and charged with attempted robbery, a second-degree felony with a maximum penalty of 15 years. And guess what? The guy is being held on a $25,000 bond, as well as his probation violation. And who is this high-rep learner? Please meet Daniel Fountain, ladies and gentlemen. He's probably going back to prison. I think the Publix are safe, but Mr. Fountain, when you get out of prison, let's not make it a third time, because clearly you don't get it. A very high repetitious learner. All right, that's all we have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'm happy to be back. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.